Come and get started on a new mission, a new direction, a new intention. Welcome to 5.8G Alive at Connections 50 Plus. I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, catering to all your prospects in the third act of life.
Economic well-being, social gratification, personal fulfillment.
Join us on Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Connections 50 Plus Facebook page, YouTube channel,
and on Gael the Caribbean.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. It is 6 o'clock. You're on Facebook, or you're on YouTube, or you're on Gael the Caribbean. And it is Wednesday, 23rd of June. So this is 5.8G Alive by Connections 50 Plus. I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite, one of the co-creators of Connections 50 Plus. And as usual with me,
I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, the other co-creator of Connections 50 Plus. Welcome and good evening to all.
Great. Listen, today's show is chock-a-block. We're not talking a whole lot before, but everywhere across the Caribbean, Jennifer, things seem to be, we're going on a bumpy ride, but it seems to be smooth now. The vaccines are coming, and we are hopeful that we could all emerge from this changed. Not going back to the same, but changed.
And Terry-Ann, we hope, because Father's Day is Sunday, that all fathers, that you had an enjoyable day. In Trinidad and Tobago was a lockdown day. So it probably was the first Father's Day where we couldn't move around as we wanted to visit the fathers, those, at home. Yeah. But Terry-Ann, at least you got this, go out for a short while.
I did a speed visit. Got down there, served breakfast, and then back up the road in about 2.5 hours. But he was thrilled.
Yeah, because our curfew was from 10.
Yes. Yeah. I got back home at 9:57. Took 3 minutes to spare. But anyway. But Jennifer, for today's show, listen, audience, we have been talking about getting ready to change your mindset and really get ready for the future. Today's show is signature and special. And because we have so much to talk about, our format is a little bit changed. Our first segment is going to be Being Dollar Savvy. And we are so happy to have Gregory McGuire back with us again. Yes. This time really talking about what's to come. And you're going to really enjoy that segment. Jennifer has good news for you. Our seminar, our webinar is on. So at the end, Jennifer is going to tell you about the webinar. So listen. Sit down. We are going to be talking about some real truths about us, this 50 to 80 cohort. So let's start by hearing some real truths about where we are and how we should be dollar savvy with Gregory McGuire. Okay, everyone. So we are back to being dollar savvy, and everyone would recognize a familiar face, Gregory McGuire, retired economist. Gregory, you're retired.
That's part of the subject that we will discuss today.
And you met him first as CEO of
Nice
Beverages, and he is the owner, creator, chief cook and bottle washer, and producer of McKay's Rum Cream. Remember that from the last time. But today, Gregory, we are starting a discussion on a new direction. We have been talking to our cohort, as you know, about preparing to be on the third act stage. And we expect to have a happy life for the next 30 years. Over the past 3 to 5 years, how we live in the islands in the Caribbean is really impacted by what is happening all over the world. And over the last 3 to 5 years, a lot has been happening that is really changing our, macroeconomic context. And we believe that it will impact on what governments, what businesses, what individuals can and should do going forward. And of course, the cherry on the cake is good old coronavirus. and its impact generally. So we thought that we needed to have a discussion with our cohorts to take a little review to see where we are. Because when we spoke earlier, you know, we are the product of the last 30, 40 years. And we may have a lot of expectations about what should happen to us over the next 30 years. So let's take a look back, Gregory. What is the economic context of this cohort? You know, and I might just add one thing other that I know we're not generic, we're not a homogeneous group, everybody the same. There's the wealthy, there's the middle class, and there's the poor and fixed income. So let's hear.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you're quite right about that distinction. We're not all one at all. And that really, economic class distinction really places people at give people different abilities and different assets to cope with what's coming ahead. But interestingly, you know, that you raise the question of the economic background of these people, of our cohort, of this 50 plus cohort. So if you were born if you are 50 and 50 plus, it means that you were born in 1970
Before.
Before. But you know, talking about those at 50, if you're 50.
Hello, I'm happy to
be the youngest among us, among us would have been born in a signature year in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, which is 1970.
Oh, yes.
All right. But you go back to the oldest among us, who would have been here around since 1940, 1941. So that's an interesting mix of people because between them, they've gone through 3 major economic cycles, if you take the cohort as a whole in this country, which economic cycles have really shaped where we are today, and which I think we need to understand quite clearly if we are to prepare ourselves for what is to come. So let's just backtrack that and if I'm 80 years old, I've seen a lot in this town. So it means that I was a young, first of all, I would have seen what was a mini boom, which many people don't point to in 1950s, 1955, 56, when in fact, yeah, the country got its first dose of offshore oil from Trinma. Yeah, Trinma in the Southwest Soldari area began in 1955, 56, and that immediately jumped oil production significantly, almost doubled oil production at that point in time.
All right.
And that, of course, brought additional revenues to the colony as it was then. And I won't be surprised if it also informed the push to independence at that point in time, because there was more money in the colony. And therefore, it may have been, I haven't seen that written anywhere, but I'm just saying that it may have been aided that push towards independence and helped to garner the confidence that we had as we moved into independence. So then those who came in, born in the 50s and so on, people like me, would have joined those earlier ones and would have entered that independence era with the hope, of building a society, of taking charge of ourselves, of creating our own destination.
You know, that really shapes the personality of the Williamses and the Robinsons and of course, that Black middle class that, you know, you really get a sense of why. Great.
Yeah, the fellows, people who were the teenage then, the young, the tweens then, they really bought into that whole national movement, as it were, in the 60s. Of course, by 1970, hopes of that had begun to dissipate. And more than that, a new consciousness arose around the colonials, around Blackness, around the Black Power movement. And that whole Black consciousness period, when we embraced Black is beautiful, by Mighty Duke, captured it quite nicely in song. And you might find me drawing reference to calypso from time to time.
Those were the days when calypso really reflected what was going on in the society.
That's where our stories are told. That is where our stories are told.
Yes.
And so that's important. So you had that whole Black consciousness and Afro consciousness rising there. And which brought us quickly, and I'm just going to run through some signature that I think speak to what was happening in the macroeconomy and what's happening in society. And the next one would bring me to 1973, early 1973, or was it 72? When Dr. Williams gave his famous, like a bridge over troubled water speech, I shall lay thee down, and decided that he was going to call it quits and so on. And there's all kind of background stories around that. He's playing smart and so on, all that kind of story. Bottom line is that the economy itself was on the brink, and I suspect he was tired. And at that point in time, the independence movement and even his policies about national ownership and public participation and involving the small man in earning a stake in the economy, that could not take off the ground, because in 71 to 73, they just didn't have the resources to do it. But you know what? I think here's where we began to believe that God is a tree. Because from 1973, OPEC, oil price increase, combined with oil production increase with offshore finds in teak salmon and pui, brought a whole new dimension to the thing. And by 1975, money was no problem. And that was the theme. Money is no problem. So the 70s saw the birth of the welfare state in Trinidad and Tobago. And that's why it's so important. It began to see the birth of the welfare state. So young ones like you don't know anything about paying for public transport and stuff. You know? So
free university education,
Yep, all of these things, free secondary education, schools like rain being built all over the place and so on, and everybody just walked into a secondary school and that type of thing. So money is no problem, and that pervaded the society with the growth of the welfare state, coming up to 1981-82, when, of course, Chambers, recognizing that incomes were falling and that expenditures were rising. In fact, the famous Bob report of 1978 warned the country that the growth in expenditure was not sustainable.
1981.
And 1978, Bob wrote this in 1978, but of course, there was a big oil price increase in 1979 and a huge increase in production as well. So that went through one year and went through the next, as money continued to run through like a dose of salts, according to Michael Manley. But in 1981, Chambers sounded the first warning when he said, "Fet done, back to work." Wow. And I think, unfortunately, as a society, we did not embrace that as well as we embrace money is no problem. We fet done, back to work. Our response to that was that Chambers done see. You know, and Stalin even at that time appealed to Mr. Divider to run something. So even in the context of the welfare state, you still had Stalin saying, Mr. Divider, run something. Why? Because
I can remember Skinner Park, Gregory.
Yes. All those things where we were having fun and jumping and putting hand in the air and whining. Yeah, serious messages were being sent to us. You know, serious messages. Yes. So that what Stalin was seeing was the great divide kind of getting worse in the society, where, notwithstanding the fact that the poor was receiving the benefits of the welfare state, yet still all the make-do jobs and so on, it's just subsistence level living, while at the same time the what they call the what was it called?
Technocrats?
Not the technocrats, what was the word I'm looking for? Or the tender entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Yes, those who live out of government contracts and so on were making a mint, and the merchants as well, in the context of a society that was now steeped in consumerism, were also making a killing, and therefore that created that divide between the rich and the middle and the lower classes of the people. You know, and so it's not surprising that the two next significant dates would have been 1988, when we were forced to go to the IMF, because finally money ran out and money became the problem. Yeah. And of course, the social tensions in the society began to build, the pressures began to build, leading to the 1990 coup. So all these things are very, very relevant, that you look back now, as I am, a old 66-year-old man, you look back now and you've been through this journey and you recognize how the dots and how those dates are hanging together, you know? So we overcame that. I mean, we came out of 1990, we celebrated, we began the new journey. Again, almost fortuitously, you had explosion in gas industry then.
Yes.
And that really—
God is a training again.
Yes. So that significant decision, I tell people to enter the LNG market and to agree to LNG created the stimulus that caused the exploration to take place offshore and to bring new gas on stream as well, and to encourage a whole host of other industries. So the gas boom, which really began in about 1993 and would take us through the 90s and down the road. There's some points in time where people make us issue about the fact that, somewhere in 1999, oil fell to $1 back to less than $5 or $8 and so on a barrel. That is something that lasted a few days, actually.
Very short.
The average price of oil in that year was on the order of $20-something in any event. But the key thing was that there was hope, and the government fiscal position was not seriously challenged. Why? Because by 1999, we knew that LNG was kicking off, and we knew that new ammonia plants, new methanol plants were opening. We knew that the economy and the industry was in boom, and that boom lasted straight down the road from 2000 and from 1992, I would say, straight down to 2010. 2009, 2010, almost 20 years of income and constant flow and growth in GDP and growth in incomes across the board and so on, right? Of course, it brought us the signature of 2010 and change of government. And although the government was chastised, the government of 2002 to 2010 was chastised for their spending, one of the significant things that happened between 2010 and 2015 was that the spending actually increased.
Yeah.
And I've always looked at it and said, this is amazing that spending increased, and spending increased at a time when incomes of the country was not what it used to be. Mm-hmm. And so you had really different mechanisms to boost that spend, the most significant of which was drawing down on drawing down on the reserves of a major state enterprise to the tune of in excess of $5 billion.
That's US dollars or TT dollars?
TT dollars. And that would not happen anywhere else in the world, like you say, only in
where else in the world?
But you see, because even though the science, and that's what I'm saying, a lot has been focused, just to bring it to closure now, a lot has been focused on what's happening over the last 5 years, and for some people, what has been happening since COVID. I want to say that Trinidad and Tobago as an economy has been having structural problems forever. And the structural problems and the structural decline, the systematic structural decline that we've been having has been with us since 2010, 2011. When the incomes that we are accustomed to stop flowing, apart from 2013 and 14, which saw the highest oil prices we've ever seen in our lives. But like I said, the spend matched that income growth. And one of the significant lessons that come out of that whole journey is the following. Spending is very difficult and very inflexible downwards. It's easy to increase it. Cut back is very, very, very difficult, because cutting back, particularly when that spend is a lot goes on the welfare state, where you have over 56, I think it's up to 58% now of your government spend going into transfers and subsidies. Cutting that means social dislocation in a serious way. And so that's the challenge we face. So what have we seen in the economy since 2011? We've seen systematic decline. We have seen a change in pattern and a big gas revolution in the United States, which has eroded our competitiveness as a gas location.
That shale, the whole shale.
Revolution, yeah. We've seen the rise of concern for climate change and the development of technologies in energy, which would erode the growth and perhaps lead to the decline in consumption of hydrocarbons, in particular coal and oil. We've also seen an increase in our debt because we've been spending like rain and not being able to meet expenditure, essentially where our hat is, we just can't reach it.
We need 6 ladders to get to it.
We need some ladders, and that ladder comes in debt, and that debt is for future generations to pay. But so COVID has changed that. As you know, COVID has disrupted supply chains. COVID is causing us to reinvent a whole host of things about the way we are and how we cope with this world. And a number of things that are brought onto COVID will not return. A number of things have been displaced, and the world is not going to go back to those things at all.
No, it won't.
Because COVID has forced you to discover how much that you can do virtually and how much you can do electronically. It has accelerated not only the creation of the vaccine, but I think it has accelerated more and more and more digital platform, and the digital revolution has taken on 9.58 speed. You know, that's what's happening in the digital revolution now. It's no longer the kind of 10.2 and 10.1 kind of speed.
You know, Gregory, the thing is, it is so important, and thank you for that look back, because that is our history. And what we need to be reminded of sometimes is how we got here. And the thing that strikes me very much is some people, many cohorts in Trinidad and across the wider Caribbean, because Trinidad's expenditure facilitated growth in many countries across the Caribbean. Although we could seen as the Arabs and arrogant, very much our spending was done there. And many of their industries, whether it was the hucksters with the agricultural produce, whether it was for holiday, they depended, or even Trinidad's largesse. And the thing about it is that while I am absolutely a pro-business person, many successful business people were as enthusiastic feeding at the government trough as were the civil servants, the huge public sector, which I include state enterprises and state companies and all of those, as were the European CPEP and the fixed income persons who got their pensions raising, and the hustlers who knew that I could make a shoe, be a drag brother, make a dress, cook some food, because the population was being carried by government expenditure. So we have probably many self-made persons, yes, you're self-made, who went into markets that were really presented for them. And at today's juncture, when we begin to look forward to see So how do we move forward now that our wonderful cohort is moving into the next 30 years? This is the 50 to 80. I wonder if we are realistic about our capacities and what is likely to happen in the future, given that the context is all changed.
One of the things we have to be conscious of as we hit this stage is what one of my mentors used to call the advent of the 5 dragons. I'll never forget it, because this was, I had invited this particular mentor to my 50th birthday party. He was out of the country and he couldn't come. And afterwards he called me and he said, you know, I'm sorry I couldn't come, but there was something that I really wanted to say, not only to you, but to all your friends and cohorts, because I'm a little bit ahead of you guys. I wanted to say this to all of you. And his words was this: be conscious of the 5 dragons. The 5 dragons are those things that are going to cause major stress for you when you enter this cohort, right? The first, of course, is health, which, if you're lucky, you will go through fine. A lot of us are not so fortunate, and health can be a major and significant challenge. The second dragon is house maintenance. So you realize all of a sudden that you're now 60, that you purchased the house when you were 25 to 30 on average. So the house is 30, 35 years old. And one rainy season, you either hear the galvanized flapping, or you hear... That's right. And the cost of replacing the roof is the same thing as the cost of that you paid for the house 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Dragon number 2. Dragon number 3 is your car maintenance. So you got accustomed to driving, probably like me, you probably grew up driving a Mazda 323, and then you migrated to a Mazda GLX, when those days Mazda GLX was the car to have. In today's
SUV.
Yeah, today's environment is a big SUV. Today's environment, they go for an old Audi and so on and so on. The point is that dragon number 3.
The company bought too.
And well, that's the other thing, eh? You also live, a lot of us, particularly middle income group that you're talking about, and the professional group, a lot of us live, here's how I put it. The house is mortgaged to the bank. The car is the company owned. The phone is the company owned. The holiday is the company owned. Like, what is yours? And that's a lot of people's reality. Yeah, because to come down from that when you have to leave is a major step down. Back onto the dragon. So we got health, house, car.
Maintenance.
Those of us who have children late will discover that you reach 60 and all of a sudden you have to pay for university education. That's real, because you can't tell your child, you don't want to tell your child, I can't. Because
most of us postpone the children,
yeah,
because of career. Yes.
That's right. So you can't now come and say, I can't, because you know you should be able to. And then, of course, some of us still have elderly parents, and we got to foot the bill because they did foot the bill for us. So I'm saying that when you reach to this cohort, those are some of the realities that you face. And therefore the question is, have you prepared yourself income-wise to take care of those things? And if you have not done so, what should you do now? Because it's unfortunate that you didn't do so. You know? And what is the outlook, I guess, is what you're asking.
Yeah.
Because this was built on government a lot of what we have was, we know we grew up on the welfare state, para-welfare state.
It was subsidized.
Yeah. So what do we do? What do we do now? Of course, we would have heard the news last week, or in the Senate or in the House or something, around the state of the National Insurance Board and National Insurance Fund and so on. And the pensions and the fact that the National Insurance Scheme may be bankrupt or certainly not sustainable unless some move is made with respect to increasing contributions.
Yeah.
Or
and pushing back the retirement age.
Back to retirement age and so on. And I think that is a fair indicator of the state of the economy and a reality that this cohort must now face, as well as those who are younger and coming on and emerging into this cohort. A reality that we must always bear in mind. So yeah. So I think where we are now is to say, let's just try to quickly summarize that, is we grew up with a welfare state. We grew up in the state with the state bearing the burden. We grew up with money is no problem, so the problem is money, to back the money is no problem, kind of thing. And because we've been facing a systemic decline, it's not going to be reversible easily. And I think we've now settled, we're getting into that state where the economy is going to settle at a lower equilibrium. And in that equilibrium, the state is not going to be able to maintain the role that it maintained. At very best, I think policy will continue to support, where possible, those that are most vulnerable in the society. Yeah. But a lot, particularly those who were in the middle class and middle income and all that kind of stuff, a lot of that, you will have to fend for yourself. Particularly if you intend to maintain the standard of living that you had before. It's all well and good, you could adjust and decide, okay, I'm going to go back to student life.
But you have the children in university and you have the parents.
You have the parents, you have those dragons to face. So I don't even know that is an option.
Absolutely.
An option, yeah.
Gregory, as we thank you so much. And I want to invite Jen back in to the discussion because, we can now talk about, yes, this is where we are and what we as a cohort need to face and how we need to, as they say, flex. But I don't think this is flex. This might be break and reposition, as it were. So, Jennifer, are you there?
Hi.
Yes.
Yes.
Gregory's painted a very realistic picture. It is, you're talking about the calypsos, and I'm Skinner Park vampire person and Stalin going across the stage, and you're all over and Trinidad, but this is who we are. But the future is going to be very different. And this is one of the reasons that Connections really wants people to be dollar savvy. Jan, what are some of your thoughts or questions?
Actually, listening into Gregory's talk, I especially like, coming down to the end of this chat about the dragons. That's so real. And Gregory, that's, we are aware of it. Unfortunately, I have found, especially now where people panicking, they weren't aware, a lot of the information you shared, I wouldn't say weren't aware. We were in it, and I'm saying we, I am more within your age group.
I don't like how you all just ignoring people who born in the
might be aging himself.
So yes, we are aware, but as you said, during the boom and we're going along, being supported and everything is nice. But now we tend to forget. And when we have to face the reality that you have just pointed out, the dragons, most of our cohort, especially those coming from that middle range, we are very scared. And I'm saying we are very scared. And you mentioned it. It is not, things are not going to be the same, definitely. But what is happening is that we are seeing that even the savings, those of us who thought that we had savings and that we were comfortable, it isn't enough to deal with what is happening, to deal with the responsibilities. And you made a reference, definitely. We have our parents to deal with. And let me add, we have our children and grands to deal with.
That's right.
Because, Gregory, their situation where we have planned, and those who would have already left university, and we're very proud because they settled into the nice jobs and etc., especially those who worked in the oil. And you said your son will have been an engineer with petrochem. These things we were proud of, making a lot of money. They may have even been helping us, in situation. Now, listen, many of them find themselves without jobs.
That's right.
They're schooling because nothing is wrong. We wanted the best for them. So our grants will have been going to, play school, etc., etc. So that question that I'm looking forward for you to answer and guide us is, and I'm in that group, what really has to happen now? Because we are scared. I would say we are scared.
Yeah, listen, Jennifer, and Terry, sometimes people say that things too late and it's too late to start this and it's too late to start that. It's never too late.
Yeah.
For me, what we face now, when you look at it, invariably what you face is both our people, our generation, this 50-80 cohort, as well as the children, as you say, some of whom are going through all these difficulties. I think there's several things that we must think through. And this is me. I believe, for example, and it's one of my fundamental beliefs, that you, the individual, must begin to see yourself as an asset.
Yes.
And an asset is, you use an asset to make money.
Exactly.
And why are you an asset? You're an asset because you now have had 40 years, sometimes 40 something, 50 years of work experience.
Yes.
In some way, in some field. Some of us are more fortunate than others. We're skilled in X, we're skilled in Y, and so on. So I think the first challenge that I think recognizing that with an income gap we're facing at the end of the day, there's an income crunch, both at our side as well as things. And the state ain't going to fill that. No. So quite apart from the managing the cost side, there's also the trying your best to see how you could monetize this asset in some way. It means, for example, that I think lots of people, not only people retire too early, but people look, I'm in a group of guys, and what was amazing to me yesterday, I told Terry that we had a meeting. On Saturday, I think we had this nice meeting and so on. A bunch of old friends from the university. What was significant about this is that 20 guys were on the call, and everyone, well, except 3, 17 of us, which is a significant percentage, over 80%, were involved. The retirement was were not retired, let me put it this way, were involved either still working on some corporation, particularly those who lived abroad, as well as running their own consulting practice. And I'm telling you, the youngest guy there was 63, because we were in university together. The point I'm making is that here's a group of guys, 80% of whom have prepared themselves And the major basis of preparing themselves is that view that I am an asset, and my skills and competencies that I've honed over the years make me marketable to either stay in the corporate world or to go out on my own and see how best I could carve out something that generates some measure of income.
Yeah.
Of course, the easiest thing to do, and I'm saying this now for those to come rather than those who are in it, because those who are in it may not be able to. But you know, the good books tell you all the time that at this age you want passive income. You really want to try yourself to get the passive income. And passive income, of course, if you prepare for it long before, it can come out of the annuities. But also it can come from real estate and real property rental, and equipment rental and so on. So that is where the assets begin to earn income for you, and you don't necessarily have to be running, but you're not doing the work yourself. So outside of that, I don't try to prescribe to people where they need to go. I say let your creative energies work for you. Really let your creative energies work for you, because there is something out there, and there are things out there that you can find and you can make the best of. But a mindset change is required in my mind, as well as belief in self. You see, a belief in self is required. You don't believe you could do it, and you don't believe you could do things, and you don't believe you have the capacity. Well, you know.
Absolutely.
But sitting down, as my mentor used to say as well, sitting down and letting your toenails grow is not an option. It's not an option. Okay. So let me give credit where credit is due. The 5 dragons, I don't know, but the 5 dragons I learned from Trevor Farrell.
Yes.
And Trevor is one of those people who helped create me. And I really give him credit for giving me those insights at that landmark age of 50. Yeah.
Gregory, I want to really, really thank you. You've fulfilled my mandate completely. And I think this is such an important topic, because, you know, the world is going on, and we can continue talking about other. We could talk about the state, we could talk about other people, we could talk about business, we could talk about the people who are, we could talk about other, but our cohort, we have another 30, 40 years to go. And as you say, these dragons are real and our wealth is depleted. And we unfortunately grew up in times of plenty.
Yeah.
And like our parents and grandparents who knew whether it was wartime or bad colonial times, who knew what doing without and sacrificing is. You know, sacrifice for us is, won't go abroad this year on holiday, we'll stay at home.
That's right. That's right.
You know, so we're going to be learning some lessons that are best learned in youth in our prime. Yeah. And I think the context that we got today, this summary has, my faith is not only in us being an asset, but our innate intelligence. It doesn't matter whether we are in the wealthy, the middle class, or the hustlers on the ground. This cohort understands life and living. And I think once a scenario is set for us, we will do what we need to do.
Yes.
One thing we are ready to do is suffer too much. So we'll make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we are creative people. I mean, we are people who could get things done. You know, you see time and time again. And I think what is important is for us to grasp the reality that we face. The economy that we grew up with is no more. Let's just stop hoping that it will come back. It won't, right? The systemic conditions out there in terms of where the world is going with oil, where the world is going with gas, where the world is going with ammonia and methanol and those things that we make. It's just going to create more and more, markets going to become more and more competitive with more and more supplies that may be cheaper and more reliable than ours, as the case might be. And so at the macro level, we need to begin to find new pillars to stand on. And lots of stuff has been identified. We just need to do it. And at the micro and individual level, we just have to make serious adjustments to the way we live and the way we provide for ourselves and our families for the future. And that may take us, like I said, longer in the working world. It certainly is going to make a much bigger effort at savings and investment. And I'm not referring here to buying lotto nor to DSS. You know, we want to avoid.
It's the long, hard way.
Yeah.
Stalin said it. Batman in general don't get nothing easy. You know, you got to work. Right? And you got to put that effort out there. Yeah, so that would be my kind of closing thoughts. Yeah.
Great. Gregory McGuire, thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
I will look forward to having you back on again. As I said, I want to talk to that group of people, that community.
Give me a shout. And
I will.
Thank you so much, Gregory. And yes, we'll remain positive.
Sure. Good. Take care, folks. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Jennifer, it is so important that our cohort has people like Gregory McGuire to help us remind us where we came from and how we happen to be where we are.
Yeah, and Terry and Gregory really confirmed what we have been saying all along about, you know, we are our biggest asset. At this time, we should be moving forward with a positive mindset.
Mindset changes.
Yeah, being very creative. And I like the part, we can't sit back and just, cut our toenails.
Let your toenails grow.
I say the other way around. So we can't sit back and let our toenails grow. And that's a fact.
So people, we have to take care of the 5 dragons, you know? We are very fortunate to have not been through any kind of natural disaster. Well, not the islands of the Caribbean, but our Trinidad base. Our natural disasters, really significant disruptions. And those 5 dragons, health, house, car, children's education, and your parents, while we lived on, we've all been subsidized. That's what we have to, we've all been subsidized. But the good news is that Connections 50 Plus in our programs, our business suite of programs can help us to identify the asset, fix the mindset, and get us going. So thanks to Gregory McGuire again, but here's hope. Listen to this.
This is a call to action for those 50-plus entrepreneurs who wish to dynamize their business strategy and magnify their entrepreneurial footprint. We at Connections 50+ can help you do just that while facilitating a seamless transition to self-employment. Our Evolution series of programs are designed to deliver business solutions for SMEs and individuals needing to start up or to pivot. Our programs are designed with you in mind and are tailor-made to suit your economic growth plans. The Success-Driven Package with a digital focus will take you to the next level of your business life. In this new normal, creative entrepreneurship is the ideal way of adapting. So let's adopt new ways of engagement and select viable niche markets that fit us best. Through our Evolution Business Solutions programs for SMEs and individuals, we at Connections 50+ will work with you to sharpen your senses to target your customers meaningfully and achieve your goals measurably. Call us at the numbers on the screen or visit our website. Don't procrastinate. The time is right now to focus, to dedicate, and to reap. Connections 50 Plus Business Solutions for SMEs and Individuals, the Evolution Series.
Gregory really showed how we really focus on ourselves, individuals, to come to our position, and high or low, we benefited, whether it was from a transfer or whatever it is. All I can say, Jen, is our 5.8G model seems well placed for the times. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And when you look at from Gregory's point of view, what it says to me and for our community, our cohort, is that we have to be creative. And this is where creativity comes out in both situations, you know? So yeah, and if we are creative and we are aware of our talents, our asset, let me use that. And we are aware of our asset, then yes, we are ready, you know?
Definitely. And you were well reminded, we all have things. You heard our business solutions ad, and you're familiar with the other ads, the toolkit, the reset program. We can help. So give us a call. So,
Terry-Ann, and before we close, we need to tell them about our upcoming forum.
yes. So
You
we're
know?
going to do a small in tune. It's going to be short, but Jan is going to give you a sense because we have something going. So let's go to being in tune.
Great.
Good.
Right. Now, we did say we left out being in tune, but actually, this aspect, what I'm going to share with you, is really an aspect of being in tune. And as promised, you may have recalled when we had that session with Onika Henry, and Onika, a sexologist and sex educator. And Onika spoke to us about sexuality at 50 plus. And we promise you that we're going to do a follow-up with Onika. So what we decided, and based on your response, what we have decided is to have a forum. So we have organized this forum called 50 Plus Sex and Self-Care Small Group Forum. And it's for both men and women. And when we say small group, we are looking at not more than 10 participants at the forum. We may need to have more than one, but at least 10 participants per forum. Now, this forum is set for, we have it, you know, for the Friday. That's Friday, July the 16th at 6:30 p.m. And this is going to be on our Zoom platform. Okay. And in this forum, of course, Onika would be the facilitator. And at this forum, participants will recognize that by neglecting their sexual health, they are losing out on a powerful source of healing, vibrancy, and creativity. Right? So as long as when you attend, you will learn the difference between sexuality and sexual health. You would get tips and techniques for rekindling romance and enhancing your sexual experience. So it's really going to be a fantastic workshop. So remember, start planning. It is going to be on Friday, July the 16th at 6:30 p.m. So you will see, we will put some information for you on our Facebook page. And of course, you can give us a call. You can call me, Jennifer, at 868-685-8834. You can call Terry-Ann at 682-9202 and book your space because it's limited. Book your space early. And remember, all those of you in the Caribbean, it's on Zoom. So it's not just for Trinidad and Tobago, it's for the entire Caribbean. So get ready and give us a call.
Oh, Jennifer, we deal with money, being dollar savvy. We dealing with our own selves, being in tune,
yes,
sexuality, and whatever. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that forum. So, people, Where else can you go but 50 plus to get all of the connections? All of this.
It's a lot. Yes.
But we making sure that stage is built and we're gonna have fun no matter what. Next week, we have a lot more in store for you. Can I give anybody a sneak peek?
Well, if we have time, and I know we are out of time. But at least, you know, we're going to put information on the Facebook page, as you said, and feel free to give us a call. Yeah.
All right. So have a beautiful week, everyone. Take care. Be safe.
Enjoy. Bye.
50 Plus Tribe and follow us from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
Thank you for joining us on this Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive show.
We hope you enjoyed the lively conversation and look forward to seeing you next week.
Don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We really love getting your feedback. Bye for now.